Hi everyone, it's Trina here at John's Furniture Repair, and I'm just starting this rattan set that's come in. It's a whole set that I introduced in another video, and this is the first piece. This is actually a footstool here, and it's getting quite a bit of work done. It's very broken and needing a lot of structural work and a lot of weaving replacements. And then we're also refinishing this whole set into a natural rattan instead of the shellac color. So this is kind of what I've been doing some practice on, but I have a friend who does some weaving and stuff for me sometimes when she has some time on her hands, and I want to get this piece ready for her to do the weave repairs. So I'm just throwing this on the bench kind of before we even start the whole set to take care of a few issues, and I'll show you what they are. Okay, so you can see underneath here where this is the structure that the cushion would sit on. So this is upside down, and this entire piece here has split in half, and someone stuck a screw through it and other things to try to fix that area there. So that's the main thing that needs attention. But other than that, all the areas that you see green tape that I've got are areas that need to be rewoven, so pretty much everywhere. And this is one that's intact here. You can see how it's just kind of like binding around the joint. That's all nice. And this one's not too bad either, but entire sections are missing. So this whole area has lost all its binding. And the main reason why that's happened to this piece is that the feet that are supposed to be on the bottom of this have gone missing or fell off a long time ago. And the actual rattan binding was now rubbing on the ground when it was sitting. And that's ripped and kind of shredded off all the weavings. So we definitely need to make sure that we put some kind of glider or foot to kind of save from this stuff rubbing on the ground any more than it should. So maybe, you know, probably around here where it's been rubbing, that's exactly where it contacts the ground, and that needs to have a foot. And if you have a rattan set, make sure you have the feet here or you're going to lose all your bindings. So that's the main issue, but these supports are loose on both ends. They shouldn't be able to twist like that. They should be nice and firm like this one. And here we've got all the bindings missing as well, and it's a little loose. So I'm just going to do these repairs before we clean it up, so that because she has some time next week, so it's ready for her to do her thing on the bindings, and then we can get to cleaning up the finish. So let's take care of this. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is get this screw that was added out of here. Just throw that Phillips screw in the garbage where they all belong. And then I need to figure out how I can get this whole area to come back down here. There's a huge nail, which is how it was originally put on, that comes through these pieces. I don't want to remove this side brace all the way because the weaving is somewhat intact on the other side, even though it does need some tightening. So I'm hoping I can just kind of sneak this nail out of here, and then we can put it back in when we have this piece sturdy, or you might use something else completely different. So I'm just gonna see how hard it is to pull this nail out. Yeah, so this guy right here sticking out, and they're on all of the pieces except for this one's fallen out. So these two nails here need to come out. So I'm gonna get a different type of pliers, and I'm gonna try to rock it on this pry bar. This type of pliers is really good for pulling nails when they're a little bit bigger and more difficult. You can get a lot of leverage with this one. So I'm just gonna try to, it's a really tricky, tight space to work in. Nope, not that way. Is there any movement on it? If I twist, ah, there we go. That's a big sucker. Okay, so that's free now. So that's out of the way for this piece to get glued back down. I'm just gonna kind of pop it down below the break and then get this guy as well. Try the twisting method on this one. That seems to work. Okay. And then I'm just gonna try to drop this piece maybe above instead of underneath. That'll work a little better. Yeah, so I'm just gonna actually tie it up to a rung up here so it's out of the way. Maybe with a clamp. Gotta kind of be conscious of being able to get these back into the place we need to go. Okay, so now that those are out of the way, I can kind of look at this surface here and see, is it gonna come back down okay? Okay, so I'm just gonna try to kind of press that down and see how it looks. Definitely not a clean break, and it's been worked on, and there's things that should not be here, like this little nail. It's right in here. Actually, that might be for this piece. I'm gonna have to leave that down there. So this is a pretty important piece for the structure in this, because everything attaches to it. So when I do reattach things, this is actually not going to be the primary piece that I attach things to. I'm going to bring things right through these two outer pieces. I mean, it has to go through this again, but it's not going to be holding the weight like it was before. So we're just going to need to get this down for looks, basically. And then I'll be having to do a repair where I drill through these two guys to fasten this back in. Just because I think going straight into this piece is a lot better than drilling into at an angle from this piece. So what I'm gonna do is mix up a batch of epoxy, and I am just going to fill this area and sandwich it back together so it becomes one solid stick again. And then we can work on attaching these guys back. So let me go get some epoxy. All right, this is gonna be a mess, but I'm just gonna kind of slowly work epoxy into all of these wood fibers. And I gotta use epoxy here because it does not fit nicely together again. It's been manipulated back and forth to try to get it to stay together for many years, and that has changed how things fit together because the wood fibers have gotten all bent and squished in different directions. So it's not like a nice, clean, fresh break that you can just push back together. It's a mess. And Rattan has these fibers that run the length of the piece, and it's very easy to misalign those. So it's not a great job for carpenter's glue or hide glue, because you're not probably going to get the fibers to lay back down together. the way that they were before they broke. So this is one of the most important stages of regluing something in repair, is getting the glue in. Don't hurry on this stage. If you have something that you're regluing and it's hard to get the glue in, just patiently work at getting it into absolutely every area that you can. And you can use syringes for high glues and thinner glues that you can water down to get it under things. I like to work it in with my putty knife, and I like to use a little bit of pressure to kind of press it into the areas. And sometimes if I can't see if there's glue in the place that I know there needs to be, then I'll actually just break it farther apart to get it in there, because I need to know. If you glue everything down and you didn't have glue in one spot, then you got to start all over again, and maybe you made it even harder to get the glue in there. So it's really super important that you take your time on this first stage, which is also why I love this open time on this epoxy, because it doesn't hurry me up along the stages. I can take all the time I need because it's not going to cure on me right away. Okay. So when I squish this together, it's probably going to squeeze out quite a bit. If you see there's a fiber that's really bent out of shape, you should probably remove it. And there's one right here that I've got right here that I'm just gonna clip right out of the area, because I don't want this being the reason why I can't get my joint back together. So I'm just gonna remove any pieces that look like they're just way too far gone. Okay, so now I'm gonna try to squish this back together. Gonna get it down first, and then I'm gonna get some clamps along this whole area. As much as I can squeeze them in there. And as I go, I'll just kind of try to keep my epoxy under control. Sneak one in there to begin. It's always difficult when you gotta work around things. And if there's any gaps, which there will be on this, I'm just gonna take my extra squeeze out epoxy and I'm gonna fill that gap. Wanting to slide down that way, so I'm just going to pull it over with a clamp to keep it somewhat aligned this way. There we go, just get a little bit of pressure on the side there. It's definitely going to be a lot of glue to clean up afterwards, but it's almost impossible to get it all off while we go, but I'll just try to get as much as I can. And get one here. such a bad fit. I'm actually gonna get something with a little bit more pressure to see if I can get that area a little bit better. It's also kind of tough to fit good clamps in here because these guys need that space. So I'm gonna maybe have to turn this around onto the top. So let me do that. Okay, so I've got it flipped over here and I've got that clamp on that area there. So that's about as good as I can get that whole break to come together there. So I'm really glad that this epoxy's in there because it's gonna have to do the job of filling all that space. So I've just kind of been working on trying to clean up as much glue as possible. Oops, you're in the camera. In these little tight spaces. There will definitely be some glue chipping happening later, but I can try to get as much as I can now. And for those of you worried about my clamps with glue on them, I throw them all in vinegar once in a while and they get all cleaned up. So sometimes they have to do a messy job for me, but they'll get their spa day. Anyways, so I'll let that sit overnight with all that pressure on it because I want that to be strong, even though I'm not going to be using it as the primary attachment for these pieces. So what my plan is, and it's unfortunate that I have to do this, but I'm going to be drilling straight through these pieces and countersinking a fastener to go right into that piece there. It's pretty much the only way I can put structure back here. This piece should be replaced, but there's no way I can do that. So it's just what we gotta do here sometimes. So we'll make a nice plug with probably just like a natural maple plug there that we can touch up and hide afterwards. And yeah, it should be good. So I think that's what I'm gonna do, other than all of the other stuff that it needs. But anyways, I'll let this sit. Okay, so this is sat overnight. Let's get all these clamps off and clean up some glue. Feels nice and solid. So I'm just gonna scrape off all these glue nibs. Okay, so got all the glue chipped off and sanded this whole area here. So now I just need to get these guys back into position. You can pretty much see where they were, but I'm gonna measure the other side just so that they're sitting the same way. So I'll measure from here to here and carry it over there. Same thing here, which is why I really wanted to keep these intact, just so I could get that measurement, but also just for reference on weaving. The glue up was pretty good. There are still some gaps and things that I'm okay with because we're not going to use this piece as the structural piece. So I'm going to come through all the way here through all these pieces straight into these cross members so that there's a lot of strength there. And I was all worried about drilling through the side of this thing and being like, oh, it's gonna be a big hole. But look at this side, there's tons of holes. They put nails everywhere. So I don't worry about that. I don't think that's really uncharacteristic of this piece. So, I mean, they used a little bit of caning spline to fill the hole here. Maybe I'll do that so it looks the same. But they didn't even bother filling a lot of these holes. They're just the raw nails, which you couldn't see as much with the shellac as you can with just going natural. This side I just did yesterday with a scraper. We're not putting stripper on this stuff. Just because I wanted to see how much time it would take me to do it by hand before I try with my soda blaster. So I did that yesterday, and most of that side is done. And probably spent, I would say, 5 hours just on this 1/2 side, getting the shellac off. It does chip off really nice, but it's just that there's so many corners and I still didn't even get all of it. So that's quite a bit of time. I'm gonna try my soda blaster on this side when it's all put back together and see what the difference is and if the results are acceptable. If not, then good old-fashioned scraping is what's gonna happen. But I'm hoping I can get my soda blaster calibrated so that it does the right job and I don't have to spend so many hours doing it, but just depends what's going to be the best result on this stuff. So let's get these lined up and drill a couple of holes here. Going to drill in with my 3/8 Forstner bit for a hole on the side of this. And I'm just gonna grab my square and I'm gonna carry that line that I measured out to the outside here. Just move that out of the way for a second. Just for a good enough reference. Can't really see that with the shellac, so I'm just gonna scrape that off. So I can get a mark on that. Okay, and I'm just going to go right in the center of this piece. And pop that hole, and I'm gonna use 3.5 inch screws, and I'm just gonna come through that way. So hopefully that's enough. I might actually countersink it through the whole one, first piece. How far do I want this to go in? It'd be nice if it went in that far. So I think what I'll do is actually countersink this right through the first piece and rely on this piece and a little bit of that one to hold that up. So I think that's going to be a better idea. So I'm just going to put a piece of tape on my drill bit so that I know how far I need to go in. I want to go about to half point of that one. So my drill bit's going to be out right there. So I'm going to come right through this first piece. Okay, so I'm just going to drill this through now with a regular bit. should come all the way through. So I'll go straight through to that connection point. There we go. So now I just want to see how far this is coming through and if it's going to be sufficient. Yeah, that's awesome, because that's going past, you know, the area that it was nailed into fresh meat over here. So that's going to be good. Now I'm not going to pre-drill into this piece because this piece has had a better life. And actually, I should probably reglue this before I do that because it's broken apart. So I'm gonna get glue on that one. Didn't notice that before. Should have had that gluing overnight as well. And just check this other one to make sure it's okay. Yeah, it's just this one that's broken. So I'm gonna glue this guy back together, and it looks like it's a great job for epoxy because half of it's missing. I'll just bring you in closer here. So we got 2 big nail holes. This flap is broken here. And there's a piece missing here. So I'm just gonna mix up some epoxy, and that guy's gonna have to sit in epoxy for a while. And the other 2 I can drill and attach. So let me get that going. Too bad I missed it yesterday. Okay, so when I don't wanna wait all day for epoxy, West also makes this quick 5-minute epoxy system. So it's a really fast hardener. So I'm going to use that here because I wish I would have done this yesterday, and I want to get this together. And it's just 1-to-1. So I usually just count how many rounds I do here in little swirly circles of the resin, and the hardener is a little thicker. And stuck in there half the time. Just gonna clean this tip off a bit. Always fighting with the glue bottles. Okay. So I'm just gonna mix that up. Give that a really nice, good mix. Make sure it's all combined so it hardens evenly throughout everything. And then I'm just going to take it and jam it everywhere I can in here. And I'm not going to use a filler on this stuff. I'm going to try to fill that entire nail hole there. Okay. I'm going to take the alcohol and just clean off the surface. Try to compact everything back in, and it's gonna seep out a little bit everywhere. I'm just gonna keep pushing it back into that nail hole. It will be dry very soon and start to heat up and thicken. So I'll just keep my eye on it. And while that is drying, I'm going to do my next hole here. So I'm going to actually wax these guys because they're going quite a ways. And I'm not going to pre-drill into this stuff because it's pretty porous. And I want all the grab I can get with this screw. I'm just going to line this piece up. Check with my hole here exactly where it is. Right there. And we're going right back into the nail hole that was in there. And I'm not super happy with how that's sucked up tight, so I might go even deeper. Hoping it would bring it together and stay together. So I'm gonna do a giant plug in this hole and clamp it together. Yeah, this is hardening up good. Okay, so even though I went past where it used to be, it still wasn't deep enough. And I don't want to go through this one, so it's only relying on this piece that we repaired. So what I'm going to do is drill this out here. And I'm going to add in a hardwood dowel to get this to come back together. And probably going to end up gluing these surfaces together just for extra hold. So once again, just freehand. As far as I can, and I'm going to get some white glue in there. I'm just going to use the old nail to get it everywhere in there. And I'm going to cut a length about that long. If these supports aren't strong, then this thing is just going to be a wobbly mess. So I need to really make sure this is all super sturdy. Good. So I'll cut that off. Smash it down. And then what I'm going to do is add a clamp side to side, and I'm going to glue these surfaces together. And really isn't much you can do with the white glue there, so it's going to have to be epoxy again. So I'm going to mix my fast hardener. Okay, so I'm going to clamp this whole thing together so that I can really get a bite on that screw, and then we'll put it back in. Make sure it's nice surface there. Okay. Awesome, way better. So probably have to do the other side the same way, but we'll get this side all tight first so I don't have to pull it apart too much on that side. Let that loose. That makes me happy that it's staying put exactly where it should. This stuff is pretty much set, but I'm gonna let it sit for probably an hour and a half just so that it's really nice and hard for me to screw into. So we'll do this one. Okay, so I've got all of the center braces secured and super tight. This thing's feeling nice and sturdy. So these holes now that I've got everywhere, need to fill, and I'm going to do that with some pine plugs. So I'm just going to put a little bit of white glue. And these are kind of the same color as the rattan, and I can color it to match if it's a little off. Expand in that hole and go to the curve there a little bit, which I'm gonna carve anyways, but I think it's the perfect material for plugging this job. Other than if I could get more rattan, which I've never really got rattan to replace before, so I'm not really sure where I get that stuff from. I think I need to drill those holes out. Anyways, so after those are in, I'm just gonna take a chisel and just going to chisel away to shape. This is gonna be under all this weaving as well. And like all of these plugs will be under the weaved area. So nobody will ever know they were even there except for you guys. But I still need to shape them. Like that. Yeah, so that's basically what I'm going to do to repair those. Other than that, for repairs, it's just going to be the weaving and get the rest of this shellac off of everything. And my friend's going to show up next week to do a bit of this weaving. She does stuff like that for me once in a while I keep working on other things. So I'll get the rest of these put in and carved down, and we'll get back to scraping. Hello everyone. It's the morning at the shop, and my friend is coming by to do a little bit of weaving on this piece. It's not all cleaned up yet, but she can redo the spots anyways as I'm figuring out my soda blasting and my methods there. So what we've got here is a 6mm binder cane. So it's got a like shiny finish on the top, and so it just comes in a big reel. We've got it hanging here, and you just kind of let it relax on the wall. I got some pretty long pieces. You could do a lot of weaves with this kind of stuff, but I'm just gonna get this in some water before she gets here so she can do her thing. So you don't need to soak the stuff for too long, and it's ready to go. So we're gonna mostly be focusing on doing these corners again. So we're gonna take this all apart and redo this weave, and then we put the pieces around to hide where these are pinned in, because these are just straight pieces that go down in like a box weave over the sides, and then these pieces hide all the attachment parts. So not too difficult. This side is the good one on this one. It still needs these pieces here. This side she'll have to redo the whole thing, and of course all of the cross members that we had to repair are gonna need their binders done, and all of the base pretty much needs their binders redone, and we can put some little feet on there to protect them. Weave. But I'll take little videos while she's working and show you guys how she gets it on there. Hey guys, work continues on the rattan set here. So this one's had most of the bindings all stripped off of all the areas that we need to replace. So on this one here, we just have to do a couple of repairs. The base is pretty loose. You can see here we've got big gaps in the joints and there's quite a bit of movement on these bottom ones. So those need some support, as well as the seat. There's a couple of them that are pretty bad. So those need to get some supports before reweaving, and we'll get that into the soda blaster too before we do that. This one here, we soda blasted. Worked out pretty good. Takes a long time, but it's doing a pretty good job of cleaning everything up and leaving the rattan in really nice shape, so it's not pitting it or damaging the surface too much. So I'm really happy with how that's working, because stripping these is impossible. So you can see a couple of areas that we've reweaved here around the binding corners. Still some to do. We're adding some that weren't there at all. Basically just working everything back to good. So there's a lot of detail on these things, and getting these bindings on is really important because it's part of the structure. So we're just going to continue to work on everything, and once this one has been repaired and soda blasted, we'll get that over to the binding, and then it's just the sofa. So I'll show you guys how we do the soda blasting. I'm gonna set it up. We're pretty rainy here for a week, so I can't do any blasting for a while, but I'll show you guys how we do that, maybe with a time-lapse video, because it takes quite a long time. So stay tuned.